Welcome to the Jericho Sailing Centre Association Rookie Racing Seminar. This is the first time we've tried to do this on Zoom. Hopefully it works. We are recording this Zoom call so that we can post this on YouTube as an educational resource later on. I have, hopefully everyone can see the PowerPoint that I've got up here. I will also make a PDF of this PowerPoint and put it on our website a little bit later, and we'll distribute the link in the wind on the newsletter on the wind. Just making sure everyone can hear me. If you can't hear me, please let me know in the chat, and we'll get going. I'll just go over the basic couple things I said already, but just in case people have joined a little late, please mute your audio. Ask any questions through the chat. Fiona, my able-bodied coworker, will be helping and by answering questions in the chat and managing the queue that way. And this really is a basic guide just to get you the info you need to get out there and have fun. All right, so let's here we go. I'm not going to bore you too much with boat politics, but the racing rules of sailing are drafted at the world sailing level. There's a whole political structure in sailing. It starts at World Sailing, it goes down to Sail Canada. BC Sailing is the provincial association, and of course, the Jericho Sailing Centre is our local club. Each one of these levels has the opportunity to make changes to the racing rules of sailing, but they are published by, or established at the World Sailing. BC Sailing Sail Canada has some national prescriptions. They don't really apply to day-to-day stuff, so we won't be talking about them necessarily today. BC Sailing has made no prescriptions changes, and clubs like Jericho will make some tweaks and changes specific to their community on an event-by-event basis. And we'll go over how we get those changes a little bit later. The rules follow the Olympic cycle. So every new Olympic cycle, there's a new set of rules we're in the 2021 to 24, something like that. 2020 to 24 cycle right now. And in 2025, there will be a new edition of the rules with a bunch of changes in it. In Canada, the rules are published by Sail Canada. So if you want a physical copy, you can buy it from BC Sailing or through Sail Canada directly. But the World Sailing does have a copy of the rules that you can look at online and download the PDF. So they are accessible. They do read like legalese, unfortunately, but it's just the way they are. Yeah, there we go.
You're not very no, I'm first. There we go. Oh, it's just in a meeting. Okay.
There we go. So we're going to encourage you to become a member of BC Sailing, Sail Canada, and World Sailing. You aren't automatically a member by joining Jericho Sailing Centre, but it is recommended. And in fact, it's often required by almost all yacht clubs, and they do have regattas. Jericho, we have a mandate for accessibility, so we don't require it, and you certainly don't have to, but it does support the whole thing if you do. All right, the first thing, there are a couple of key documents involved with every single sailing race. One of them is called a notice of race. The other one's called the sailing instructions. The notice of race generally goes out a good deal before the specific race. It sort of tells you who is eligible to race, where, and when the event will take place. And in this last cycle of rules, the notice of race is starting to get a little bit more, it's starting to be populated with a little bit more information. It might now tell you about specific courses or rule modifications applicable to a particular event. The notice of race for all the Jericho programs are on our events, on the events page on our website at jsca.bc.ca/events. And so are the sailing instructions. The sailing instructions get a little bit more specific about the changes to the rules or the specific details that will be in effect for our particular event. And sailing instructions are available on our website for each event on the event page. They're downloadable. It's a good idea to read them. They might be confusing at first, but It's unfortunately, they're made from a template that comes from Royal Sailing, but they aren't that scary once you sort of get used to them. I'm not going to go over them in detail because I think at this point is probably more information than you really need to know to get going, but I just wanted to tell you where they are and how to get them. All right, so when you head out on the water, first thing you're going to look for is the race committee boat. And at Jericho, that's the Albatross, which is this boat we have here in frame. Here we are, that's me right there, and some of my volunteers. And you're going to notice that there are a bunch of flags here and here, and those flags all mean something. By the end of this, hopefully you're going to know what the majority of these flags mean and where we might have been in the sequence. So let's start with the course. First thing you're going to need to know when you get out there is what the course is going to be, so where you're going to be sailing. A combination of the notice of race and or the sailing instructions are going to tell you what courses can be set by the race committee, and at Jericho we use signal flags to indicate which course to sail. The signal flags are pennants with a bunch of different designs on them. We're going to go over them right now. At Jericho, our course descriptions are in the sailing instructions, and we have detailed PDFs with drawings, and I'm going to show you those drawings now. So we have about 4 common courses that we might use. There's a couple more that we have specified in the sailing instructions that are there sort of experimentally, but we haven't used them yet, and we may not use them until we get out of the pandemic. So this particular course is course 1. It's a standard triangle. It's indicated with the code flag 1, which is this flag right here. It's a white pennant with a red dot. And the starting line is between the Albatross and the orange shape on the mast. You'll see the mast is painted, big chunk of that mast is painted orange. And between the mast and the red flag that's on a pin out to the port side of Albatross. So you're going to start between those 2 marks. You're going to beat your way upwind. You're going to leave all the marks to your port side. So you have to turn left around them. And in the case of a standard triangle, you're going to go around the windward mark. You're going to go around this jibe mark. You're going to go around the leeward mark, and then you're going to beat back and finish on the other side of the boat between the Albatross and a blue flag that's on a pin. This is really important. The finish line and the start line are different so that I can start and finish races simultaneously. And the big thing to remember, and this is different from race to race, regatta to regatta, club to club, is that the starting line or the finish line may be an obstruction. And this isn't such a big deal with this course configuration, but when you look at other course configurations, you'll understand why that's important. We also have 2 course configuration styles here at Jericho. This is the upwind finish style. And we use this style when we have high performance catamarans, the F-18 specifically, racing on the course with us. They are quite quick, and we find that this is the safest course configuration for them. You notice that all of our marks are yellow tetrahedrons. We also own orange tetrahedrons, and we use those for the F-18 fleet. All right, let's go to, this is what a standard triangle looks like in our other configuration with the downwind finish. So in this particular instance, we'll start here at the bottom of the course and we get a much longer and more strategic beat. We'll leave the windward mark to port. We'll leave the wing mark or jibe mark to port and the bottom mark to port. And instead of going back up and finishing upwind this way, after we leave that bottom mark to port, we'll finish on this diagonal finish line between, again, the blue flag and the Albatross that way. Okay, so that's course 1. Course 2 is a windward leeward. This is the course that we probably use the most often. Course 2 and course 4 are the courses that we use most often, but sometimes we'll use course 1 and course 3, and that's why I've included them in the presentation. You can see here the 2 different flavors, one with the upwind finish and one with the downwind finish. And so this, when the course configuration is like this, with an upwind finish with a windward leeward, the finish line and the start line, whether they are obstructions, becomes really important. Because you're going to go upwind, you're going to go around this windward mark, You're gonna come downwind, and your downwind course might bring you across the start or the finish line. At Jericho, the finish line is an obstruction. You are not allowed to cross the finish line if you are going downwind. The only time you're allowed to cross the finish line is if you're actively finishing. Some regattas also make the start line an obstruction. So it's important to know before you go out, if you're not racing at Jericho, whether the start or finish lines are obstructions. And that's a pretty important point. If you do cross through the start or finish line, as the race committee has the power to disqualify you right away. So you can see the difference here between an upwind finish and what a downwind finish looks like on a windward-leeward course. Course 3 is a Bermudan, or an Olympic triangle. This is the upwind finish configuration, and it looks a little confusing, so I'll go over it. You start, you do a regular triangle, and then you do a windward-leeward, and then you finish. So it's up to the windward mark, to the jibe mark, to the leeward mark, back up to the windward mark, back down to the leeward mark, and finish. Hopefully that makes sense. And this is what it looks like with the downwind finish. And you'll see that the course flag 3 is almost looks like it's red, white, and blue pennant. I forgot to tell you that the course 2 flag is a blue pennant with a white dot. That's really important. And you notice again, all these orange marks are extra windward marks that go much further upwind for the F-18s that are faster boats and need a longer course. So if you're not an F-18 sailor, you don't have to worry about that. You just have to look for the yellow marks. Finally, course 4 is a windward-leeward with 2 laps. So you'll start through the start-finish line. You'll go up, leave the windward mark to port. You leave the leeward mark to port, all the way back up to the windward mark, all the way back down to the leeward mark again, and finish upwind on this version and finish downwind on this version. It's really quite simple, just 2 laps. Sometimes the wind picks up and we use this course instead. It makes for a little bit longer and a little bit more strategic race. Those extra mark roundings and windward legs really give us, the competitors, the opportunity to pass each other. All right, the start. Now this is probably the most crucial part of a sailboat race. If you have a bad start, it's oftentimes impossible to recover in terms of putting yourself in a winning position. So it's very important to spend a lot of time practicing the start and really understanding the rules around the start and the starting sequence so you give yourself the best chance to do well. And the starting sequence here at Jericho is pretty simple to remember. It's 3, 2, 1, go. Pretty simple. So we have a series of flags. We organize the starting sequence into classes. So oftentimes we'll have a laser class, a taser class, an F-18 class, a Hobie 18 class. And we might have, if we have a bunch of vanguards, we'll have a vanguard class. We'll have a windsurfer class sometimes. And if we have a bunch of boats that don't necessarily fit into their own class, we'll do an X class start. And that means sort of everybody else. We'll have an X class monohull or an X class multi-hull. And each class has a class flag. And the start of the starting sequence for that class starts with a horn and the class flag being raised. And that's our 3 minutes. At 2 minutes to go, we raise the P flag, and that stands for preparatory signal. And that goes up with a horn at 2 minutes. At 1 minute before the start, the P flag gets dropped. And then at go, there's another horn and the class flag gets dropped. So it looks a little bit like this. At 3 minutes, class flag goes up with a horn. Honk, and up it goes. A minute later, the P flag will go up with a horn. Honk. And a minute after that, the P flag will go down with a horn. Honk. And at the start, the class flag will go down on the horn. Honk, like that. Now, oftentimes we have more than one class. In fact, most of the time we have more than one class racing at the same time. So sometimes one class's start, actually most of the time, one class's start can be the warning signal, the first for the next. So as the laser class in this example starts, or the taser class starts their 3 minute sequence. And so the 3 minute sequence is just run continuously until we run out of boats to start. Hopefully that makes sense. So in review, at 3 minutes, your class flag goes up. At 2 minutes, your P flag goes up. At 1 minute, the P flag goes down. And at 0, the class flag goes down. So it's really important when you're not racing and you're waiting for a start sequence to happen to stay really close to the boat. I see a lot of rookie racers get really intimidated and they go too far away, they usually downwind, and don't have enough time to actually get back up to the boat for the starting. So it's really, really important that between races or before or after a race, that you stick around. And the best place to stick around is just past the finish line, usually, or sometimes just past the starting line. Those are great places just to hang out, wait for your horns, because there's only a 3-minute window and it doesn't take much to miss it. Oh yes, so the class order for starts might change from race to race. So you really want to pay attention to both the course flags and the class flags to make sure that the orders haven't changed. So you might do a course 2 windward leeward the first race, and you might do a course 4 windward leeward 2 laps on the second race. And the first race, the lasers might start before the tasers, but in the second race, the tasers might start before the lasers. So it's really important that you're paying attention and always looking at the flags, because it's not necessarily going to be the same every race. All right, let's talk about starting strategy. This is where things get fun. This is a start here, and you can see that there are a couple of boats that got it right. They're right on the line at the start, these 3 boats up here, and these guys are all sort of in the second row, not quite at the line. And there's this one person way back here that unfortunately kind of missed the boat a little bit. We're going to talk about this a little bit. So here's our starting line. Our starting line is made up by our red flag and the orange shape on the mast of the albatross. And all of these boats here are all starting a race. And this is at the start. So this is as the horn honks and the class flag comes down. Each one of these boats that are in color is exhibiting or has a problem. And we'll just go from left to right. So this boat here in the red has made a very bold move on port tack. Now we all know that, or most of us should know by now, that a port tack boat doesn't have right of way over a starboard tack boat. So this boat is going to have to either duck below all these boats on their way out to port, or is going to have to tack right away without forcing any of the other boats to move. This yellow boat here is over the line. You can't be over the line. So the idea is at the start to be on the line, sheeted in, sailing upwind at full speed. That's the ideal case. And for most of these white boats, that's what's happening. So this yellow boat and this blue boat are both over the line. And as a race manager, it's my responsibility to call these boats over early. And we're going to talk about what that looks like a little bit later. These 2 purple boats down here are late. And the biggest problem with being late and being in the second row is you're going to get all the disturbed air from these boats up in here. This boat out here is even later, and this boat's even further behind. And finally, this green boat here is still luffing and hasn't pulled in their sail, and the whole fleet is just going to sail right past them. All right, so what happens if you're over early? So if the boat is over early, we call it OCS, or on the course side of the starting line at the starting signal. We make a second sound signal and we raise the X flag. I'm going to show you what that looks like in a second. The race committee is going to attempt to hail the sail numbers of the over early boats. It's not their responsibility, they don't have to, but they certainly most of the time try. If you are on the course side, you must restart by sailing your entire boat below the starting line without getting in the way of any other boats. That's the big caveat. So let's see what this looks like. So here at the start, the yellow boat is over early. So this flag here, right after the start, honk, the start happens, class flag goes down, and then honk, another horn will happen, the X flag will get raised, and will stay up until that boat comes back. And if it doesn't come back, it will stay raised until the next start. All right. What happens if everybody is over early? You can have a look at this start. This start is terrible. You can see all these boats are over the starting line. It's impossible for the race committee to positively identify every single over early boat. And so in this case, we have what's called the general recall. So the general recall, right directly after the first horn to start the race, within about 5 to 20 seconds, there will be 2 more horns and we'll fly this flag here. It's called the first substitute. What will happen is one of 2 things. The usual rule I'm going to tell you the usual rule and the Jericho rule, because we do it a little bit differently here at Jericho. The usual rule is that the first substitute is dropped with a sound signal. So it comes down with a horn. And a minute later, the sequence for the recalled fleet restarts. So the class flag would go right back up. At Jericho, we think it's unfair for a fleet that has caused a general recall to delay everyone else's pleasure in racing. So what we will do is we'll take the recalled fleet and put them at the end of the line. So remember we talked about the start sequences happening on 3-minute intervals, and the start of one fleet is the warning signal for the next and the next. So let's say the lasers go first and there's a general recall for the laser fleet. Well, the lasers will start last after the tasers, after the F-18s, and after the S-class, maybe, if that's who's there on the day. So that's why it's really important to have a look with every horn, to have a look at what flag is going up and down so you know where you are in your starting sequence. Let's talk about the upwind leg. So when you sail upwind, you want to be sailing upwind as efficiently as you can. There's a lot of sail trim stuff we're not going to go into, but suffice it to say, you want to be pulling in your sails as tight as is reasonable. You're going to try and figure out the favored tack and use that. If the wind shifts as you go up and down, you want to know what kind of shift you should stay on, what kind of shift you should tack on. We're going to talk about that in a second. In general, in a westerly, the closer you get to shore, the less current you have to deal with and a little bit more lift you get from the wind. So it's often very beneficial to go to shore in a westerly in the English Bay. So I'm going to give that to you. And the big thing is when you go upwind, you probably don't want to sail past the ley line because then you're sailing more distance than you need to. It'll take you longer to get up to the upwind mark and other boats will likely pass you. So let's have a look at these concepts visually. So this is the upwind leg. This is our windward mark. And these dotted lines are what we call the ley lines. So these are the theoretical highest sailing angle approach to each side of the mark. You can see that the boat on the left over here has sailed past the ley line and will sail a longer distance than this boat over here that sailed to the ley line and tacked on it, and it's on its way to the windward mark. Similarly, this boat in the middle is also approaching the ley line and getting ready to tack onto the ley line. So these two boats are doing good things. This boat over here is maybe literally a little bit out in left field. So when the wind shifts, we're going to look at this as a right wing shift. So if you're looking up the course, it shifts to the right. You can see the boats on starboard tack all of a sudden have a much more efficient sailing angle to the mark than the boats on port tack. So if you notice this, and the wind is starting to shift as you're sailing up, you can see you can point higher and higher and higher. Then you want to try and spend more time on that tack if you can, because that will get you to the line or to the mark faster than it would on the other side. It also changes the ley lines. You can see that the boat on the right all of a sudden is past the ley line. Before, the boat on the right was sort of on the ley line. And now the boat on the right is past the ley line as the wind shifted. And this is normal. And here we are on the left shift. On the left shift, the other thing happens is that the boats on port tack have a more efficient sailing angle to the top mark, and the boats on starboard tack have a less efficient sailing angle. So the idea is when you're going upwind, you do want to play the shifts. And if you get lifted, or if you get a shift that helps you go towards the windward mark, then you're certainly going to stay on that tack. And if you get headed, or if you get a wind shift that forces you to a course lower, then you may want to tack so that you can be on the lifted tack on the other side. Hopefully that makes sense. If it doesn't, please make sure to ask for clarification in the chat, and Fiona can probably try and help you with that offline. Let's talk about what happens at the windward mark. There's a particular set of rules at the windward mark that come into effect when you enter the zone. And the zone is a 3 boat length circle. So let's see this yellow, pale yellow circle around our yellow mark. And it's exactly 3 of our boat lengths long. If 2 boats enter the zone overlapped like this, then the outside boat is obliged to give the inside boat room to round the mark. And this is really, really important. So this boat cannot shut the door and make this boat crash into the mark or go below. However, these boats are not overlapped as they enter into the 3 boat length circle. So there's no overlap established here. This boat can do whatever it needs to do to stay in front of this boat. It can close the door, it can get right in there, even if an overlap is established after they've entered into the circle. But, oh, excuse me. So it's super important as racing sailors, if you think you have an overlap on a boat and you're approaching the zone, you can say, hey, so-and-so, I've got an overlap, we're approaching the zone, you owe me room at the mark. And more, 9 times out of the 10, the other boat will probably agree with you. Because it's usually pretty obvious when there's an overlap. So there are a couple of things you probably shouldn't do in the zone. One of those things is tack. If you tack in the zone, you have no rights at all. And if you make anybody deviate from their course, whether they're on port or starboard, that's a penalty on you. And you're going to need to do a penalty turn. So in this particular example, the boat with the big red X is coming head to wind inside the zone. That's a big no-no. They're in a world of hurt. They're going to have to probably, because it doesn't look like they have enough room to clear this boat here to make a tack and make another tack. So they're probably going to have to go all the way below these other boats before they can come around again. Now, where room of the mark doesn't apply is at the starting. So here we go. This yellow boat here is overlapped with the white boat at the pin end. The white boat is under no obligation to let the yellow boat start at the starting line. So the starting line, the rules are a little bit different. Similarly, the blue boat over here is barging in like this. The white boat can just sit there, flap its sails, and this blue boat has no rights to push in here. This blue boat has to go underneath. All right. Just wanted to bring this up because it is the exception to the rule. Don't touch a mark. Don't touch it. So when you're rounding a mark and there's a lot of current, you want to give yourself a little bit of extra room, because if you hit the mark as you tack, you're going to have to do a 360-degree turn, including 1 tack and 1 jibe. And that is without getting in anyone else's way. So if there's somebody in front of you or somebody right behind you, you're gonna have to sail out of everyone's way, do a turn, and continue on your way. And that will cost you time and distance, and you'll probably get passed by other boats while you do it. So additionally, if you touch a mark while starting or finishing, you must complete a 360-degree turn, 1 tack and 1 jibe, without getting in anyone else's way, and then restart or refinish again. This is super important. You cannot touch a mark at any point. All right, hopefully that's clear. So let's take a quick review of the rules of the road, because these always apply to sailboat racing as well as regular sailing. We'll go over them one by one. Obviously, a port tack vessel shall keep clear of a starboard tack vessel. And right now these boats are beam reaching, going right at each other, but this applies just as well as if they were a close hauled or broad reached, or even on a run. Windward vessel shall keep clear of a leeward vessel. So both these boats are on starboard tack, but the windward vessel might be going downwind, the leeward vessel might be going upwind, but it's really up to this windward vessel to stay out of this person's way. So either they can head up and go around this way, or they can come down and take their stern. But either way, they cannot cause this boat in a racing situation to alter course in any way without creating a penalty for themselves. Clear astern shall keep clear of a vessel ahead. This usually happens more often when you're trying to pass a boat, or when boats of different speeds are on the same course. So you've got tasers and lasers, or F-18s and lasers sailing on the same course, and and one boat's overtaking the other, it's really up to the boat that's clear astern and doing the passing, just get out of the way. And obviously that extends to the overtaking boats, keep it clear. If you tack or jibe, it is your responsibility to do so at a time where you don't interfere with anybody else on a tack. So that's really an important rule. Oftentimes in the race course, you're going to find yourself pinned by one boat that's very close to you. And if you try and tack, you'll crash into that boat. And so you would be in the wrong. So in those situations, you just have to wait until the boat on the inside of you tacks to clear your space, or you can foot off and try and get enough separation between you and that other boat so that you can safely tack, which generally isn't a good idea. When two boats are tacking or jibing, the one on the other's port side keeps clear. This is a terrible rule, but it is in the rules. It's hard to figure out when you're in the middle of it, but I'm including it here. And the easiest way to figure this out is I always think of the port side of a boat being entirely red. And if you see red, then you have to stop. And if you see green, you get to go. And that's the only way I can get this rule sorted out in my head. So the boat on the right has right of way and is free to make their tack however they need to. And the boat on the outside here needs to make sure while they're tacking that they don't hit this boat that's on the right. So they probably have to do a longer arc to their tack. Please don't get in the way of commercial vessels, whether you're racing or pleasure sailing, it's all the same. Commercial vessels have right of way. You need to give them room. We work in one of the busiest, or we play in one of the busiest ports in Canada. And it's super important to make sure you don't it's super important to not get in the way of commercial traffic. It is everybody's responsibility to avoid a collision. If you are a right-of-way boat, you still have a responsibility to avoid a collision. So if you are a right-of-way boat and you informed the give-way boat that they need to give way and they're oblivious to you and you two have a collision, the fault is just as much yours as it is the other boat because you didn't take evasive action to avoid a collision. So that's really, really important stuff. At any time, you have the right of way and you want to turn towards a giveaway boat, you must give them time and space to get out of the way. This is important. So if there's a boat you're trying to stop a boat from overtaking you downwind and you start, and they're the windward boat and you start coming to windward to try and defend your position, you have to tell them that you're going to do that. You can't just steer into them and expect them to get out of the way. You have to give them opportunity to do that. That's really important. If you are the giveaway boat and you cause a right-of-way boat to alter course, you must take a penalty. A penalty in a right-of-way situation is 2 turns. Penalty if you hit a mark is 1 turn. Penalty if you foul another boat is 2 turns, with the exception being catamarans. At Jericho and in most places with catamarans, the rule is amended for just 1 turn, and that includes 1 tack and 1 jibe. And the course 2 turns, it has to include 2 tacks and 2 jibes. If you are on the other end of that, and somebody, a giveaway boat, forces you to alter course so that you have to avoid them, then they should oblige you by doing a penalty turn themselves. And you have to inform them immediately by yelling protest and tell them, hey, you made me alter course. You're the giveaway boat. You need to do a turn or 2 turns. And if they don't do 2 turns, you can come back later and file a protest and have literally like a little trial on shore to have that boat disqualified. At Jericho, we don't necessarily encourage that behavior. We think that most people can get it sorted out on the race course, or have, or the fact that the racing doesn't mean much. It's not the Olympics here. And so, a friendly conversation afterwards on the beach or on the deck with a refreshment or a meal is a great way to discuss what happened on the road, on the water, and for everyone to learn. But the formal protest is an option, and in bigger regattas, it's fairly common one that you'll see, especially in big fleets, where there tends to be a lot of boats crossing and some fouls that happen back and forth. All right, so we've gone up to the windward mark. We've rounded the windward mark. Now we're going to go downwind. This is really important, is to find your optimal downwind sailing angles. Some boats, like tasers and lasers, can go straight downwind, and they make changes to their sails and rigging to make that more efficient. And other boats, like F-18s that run asymmetrical spinnakers, have to jibe downwind, sailing broad reach courses, because that gives them faster progress towards the downwind mark. So do a little bit of research about the kind of boat you're sailing. Figure out the best way to go downwind. Practice it. Practice changing gears from going upwind to downwind. So changing your sail, flattening your sail to go upwind, loosening your sails to go downwind. And be sure when you're going downwind that you don't cross the finish line, because at Jericho, that's an obstruction. And if you cross it when you're sailing downwind, you will be disqualified from the race. All right, so let's talk about the leeward mark. This is a great picture of a leeward mark rounding where we have 3 boats going wide around. So there was 3 boats overlapped on the way in, and they each had, the 2 outside boats had to give these 2 inside boats room to round. So let's talk about how those rules are a little bit different at the leeward mark than they are at the windward mark. We talked about that earlier. So here we are, we have the zone. We have a couple of different boats here. So you can see that this set of boats clearly overlapped on the way in. And this boat here is pretty tight to the mark, but is obliged to give this boat just enough room to get around. So if this boat forces this boat in to hit the mark, then this boat's at fault. We have these 2 boats up here that are not overlapped as they enter the zone. So this boat cannot force their way in here. And then we have all these boats on port, and we have this one boat on starboard coming in. And when you look at it, these 2 boats overlap. So this boat needs to give this boat room, and not only room to round, but room to jibe. Just enough room to jibe to get around the mark. So when we talked about the windward mark, tacking was bad. But when we talk about the leeward mark, jibing is okay. So you're actually in a very powerful position when you come in on starboard. When you come in on starboard on the leeward mark, because any boats that you might be overlapped with, and the overlap angle works really to your advantage on starboard, allows you room to jibe and get inside. So there's a little bit of strategy for you there, instead of there's that coming in on starboard is possible, and if you do it right, it might be advantageous to you. All right, so let's talk about the finishes. We talked about them briefly earlier when we were looking at the course diagrams, and the big thing is finishing downwind. On our downwind finishes is you got to leave this leeward mark to port. I've seen a lot of rookies come straight through and just finish here, or worse, finish at the starting line. It's really important that you leave that last mark of the course to port, because you're technically rounding it before you finish. Then obviously when you're upwind finish, you're just coming up and finishing. The interesting thing about the finish is that you only need to indent the line with your boat. You don't need to bring the whole boat across. So if you're getting really dangerously close, let's say you were coming in on the other side and there was a big current, and you came up, you just poke your nose over here. And if you keep on going, the current will push you into this mark, into the pin, and then you would have to do a penalty turn and refinish. But since you've indented and I've given you a whistle to cross the line, all you could do at that point is just backwind your sail and back right out, and you would still be finished, and that would be okay, totally legal. So that's a little hint there. If you're in a sticky situation and really close to a finishing mark and you've already crossed the line, it's okay to go backwards as long as you don't foul any boat that's behind you. Or it's okay to tack as well, as long as you're clear to do so. But if you've got enough room, which often people do at the finish line, it's okay to sail backwards or do some gymnastics so that you don't hit anything, and you don't have to bring your whole boat across the line, just the first part of it. So let's talk about scoring. Most events use a low point scoring system. over a series of races where first place gets 1 point, second place gets 2 points, third place gets 3 points, and any boat that gets disqualified or doesn't sail gets a total of all the boats that raced plus 1. So across a series, points from all races are totaled, and the boat with the lowest score wins the regatta. So sometimes you'll see a regatta that has 10 races, and if one boat sailed every single race and won every single race, they would win the regatta with a score of just 10 points. That's how the scoring generally works. Registration. It's super important to register. At Jericho, registration is self-serve. We have a website called jracing.org that was coded by one of our racers and volunteers, Richard Spencer. He's done a great job. And you can sign up, register for any of our racing through jracing.org. Super, super easy. And so you just go to jracing.org, and the very, very first link at the top is online registration. It opens 6 days before an event starts. You just click on there, put your name, your class, your sail number if you know it. And if you don't know it, that's okay. Because if you're using a club boat and you don't know necessarily what sail number you'll end up with on the day, you can use a temporary sail number. I think. Yeah, you can use a temporary sail number and then you can fill it in later. I'm going to show you what that looks like. So the results tend to look like this. So this is the results from a couple of weeks ago in the Taser class. We had a healthy 13 boats show up. And you can see a couple boats were over early, OCS. And some boats didn't make it to the first start. Some boats retired from one race because they did something bad and didn't realize it until afterwards. And then you have some boats that never bothered to register, but they still show up. So if this was you in a club boat and you registered with a temporary sail number, your real sail number will show up in the results like this with just a little register button. And all you need to do is go into the results, hit the register button, and assign your name to that sail number for that particular day. And your name will show up and you'll get credit. And at the end of the year, when we hand out the awards, you might end up with a piece of hardware, which would be kind of fun. Our system is unique that way. Most regattas won't let you register after the fact. We want to keep things accessible and easy. We want to keep barriers low. So this is how we do this here at Jericho, but this is not typical. At another club, you will likely have to register before you race. And if you don't register, you won't get to play. It's just as simple as that. I'm going to quickly go over a couple more flags that you might see over there. I don't want to confuse you any more than I have to, but these are flags that you might see when you're racing at Jericho. This flag is called the answering pennant, and it's flown with 2 horns when there's a delay, some sort of delay, when we're waiting to start the race, whether the marks aren't set yet, or there's no wind, or the wind has changed direction and we need to reset the course. We'll put up this flag just to say, hey, stay with us. We're working as hard as we can. We're trying to get something off when it's appropriate. So it's just a sit there and wait flag. Let me get to the next slide. Here we go. The N flag, which is a blue and white checkered flag, is flown with 3 horns when you're abandoning a race. So hopefully you never hear this. I have had to abandon once or twice this year. It's if we go past the time limit for the race, or if there's a radical wind shift that has created an unfair advantage, or a freighter is about to run us down in the middle of our race course, all this stuff, we'll fly the N flag with 3 horns and we'll abandon the race. It doesn't necessarily mean we're done for the day. It just means that the particular race that we happen to be sailing is abandoned. So I can run, just so you know, I can as a race manager, I can put up this answering pennant at any time during the starting sequence. But after the starting sequence, if I want to scrub a race off and get everyone back, I have to use the N flag to abandon the race because it has already started. And they're 2 different signals. All right. So if you're in the starting sequence, things go sideways, huge wind shift, I want to reset the course. I might just in the middle of the starting sequence, hit 2 horns and throw up this AP flag. Whereas in the middle of the first beat or the second beat or in the middle of the race, something goes sideways, I might put the 3 horns and this flag up, and I'll do my best to tell everyone that if I do that. And lastly, under the more flags category is the S flag, which is short for shorten. So if you see this S flag go up, the course has been shortened. So if, for example, I had used a course 4 or 2 laps of windward leeward, and I'm seeing that the wind is dying and it's going to take too long for everyone to do their 2 laps, I might shorten. And in which case, I'll send a marks boat out. I'll anchor it right next to one of the marks, fly this flag with a horn from time to time, and now folks will have to finish between that flag and the nearby mark. So that flag is usually on the race committee boat or on a mark set boat. And this is the point where I hope you have some questions for me. I went through this pretty quickly, and we will have this available to you. There are a couple things that I might want to go over really quickly. If there's no questions right away, I want to talk a little bit more about what's involved in restarting if you're over early. So let's go back to our over early slide. Here we go. So the over early works like this, in that the X flag will stay up and it won't come down until your entire boat goes below the starting line. A lot of people I see, they come back and they kind of half cross the line, or they don't quite cross the line, and they keep the flag up. And they think, oh, maybe it wasn't me, or maybe there was somebody else. The flag will always come down if you cross. If there are 2 boats that are over early, what will happen is the X flag will dip. So as you go across the line, you have to be looking back at the committee flag, at the committee boat, to see if the X flag will come down or if it will dip. If it dips, you're good. If it comes down completely, you're good as well. I hope that's clear. Are there any questions? I know sometimes it's intimidating to do it in front of a group. So if you've got further questions, you can always come find me at the center. You can come talk to me between races. I'll be happy to try and talk to you as best I can. Sometimes I'm busy. And other racers are certainly able to help you. Like I said, I'm going to put this PDF, I'll make a PDF of this presentation and put it up on our website. You'll be able to look at it a little bit later. I see Paul has got a question.
Hi, yeah, thanks so much for all of this. Wanted to ask, what's the racing schedule like, and how far into the fall do you keep holding races?
That's a good question. Thanks, Paul. So we have regular Tuesday and Sunday racing. Tuesday night happens absolutely positively up until Labor Day, and at which case the days get too long. Sunday racing happens right now, because we're in a pandemic, reliably every Sunday, no matter what. But in a regular year, might alternate with 2-day regattas here and there. So some days, some regatta days, we might be doing a regatta just for catamarans, and there wouldn't be any Sunday racing available for lasers or tasers. And during the pandemic, we're trying to make sure that everyone has a chance to race every week. So we're keeping Sunday racing going. In the fall, it's still unclear as to whether we're going to switch to our regular season schedule or if we're going to stay in our pandemic schedule. But suffice it to say, there will be racing opportunities on Sundays right until the end of October. Hopefully that answers your question, Paul. Stay tuned to the events section of our website, as we'll keep those events current. And you'll want to look at those anyways, because they'll have the sailing instructions on them as well. Any other questions?
Hi, this is Eden. Thank you, Dominic, for the good session. What is there any rule when ruling confliction? Is there any dominant rules? For example, if you are lured, at the same time, you're overtaking another boat, the overtaking rule dominant or the lured windward rule dominant?
Yeah, well, if you're overtaking, it's up to you to keep clear. It's pretty simple. Whether you're going upwind or downwind, or yeah. Let's have a look at here. So overtaking, it's often. Let's have a look here. So here we are. If you were going downwind and you're the upwind boat trying to overtake, you have to keep clear of the downwind boat. And the downwind boat might take evasive action and might force you upwind. Let's see if I can draw some boats here quickly. Let's see if this will work. Can you see? I'm going to bring up a different screen here. Here we go. Everyone see the new screen? Let's get rid of a bunch of this stuff. So let's get rid of this. Let's get rid of this. Let's get rid of this. All right, so these boats are going downwind. This boat here is completely within their rights to push this boat upwind. Right? If this boat is overtaking, they have to keep clear. They are a windward boat as well, and they have to keep clear. It's almost impossible to overtake a boat if you're similar to leeward like this. You're going to have to try and roll them like this, steal their wind and pass them. So yeah, it really doesn't matter. It's the boat that's doing the passing has to get out of the way. Does that make sense, Eden?
Yeah, but at this situation, because the leeward boat also has gave way to his she's in the front, right? She's being overpassed, so she has to give way to the.
No, she doesn't. It's the responsibility of the overtaking boat to keep clear.
Overtaking boat, yeah. So that one.
So the boat back here has to keep clear of this boat while they're overtaking. This boat is golden, right?
Oh, okay. Right.
This boat can do almost whatever they want to this boat while they try to overtake it.
Right.
But,
yeah. Gotcha.
But the problem is in a fleet race. So you've got all these other boats coming down, right? In a fleet race, if these two boats spend all this time going upwind to try and fight with each other, all these other boats are going to sail right past them. Right?
Okay. Right.
So it's usually not in your best interest to get too hung up with this kind of battle, but it is in your interest to protect yourself. And so being a leeward boat here, you have every right to force this boat up to try and stop them from passing you. Okay. Sometimes it makes sense and sometimes it doesn't. But this boat has all the rights. This boat has to stay out of the way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, but they sort of, the rules do sort of work in a sequence. So if there's port or starboard, so for example, let's say this boat is coming down on starboard here. Let's see if I can move them. This boat is coming down on starboard here, and this boat's in its way. Well, guess what? Guess who has to get out of the way now? The port boat, right? This boat's on port, This boat's on starboard. This boat has right of way. So this boat's probably already in a position where they're fouling this boat because they didn't get out of the way early enough. They would have to have jibed before this boat comes.
Okay.
Right? Because
even if they're overlapped a little bit.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. It's port starboard.
Okay.
At this point, port starboard, that's why port starboard is the #1 rule.
Okay. So, port starboard rule is the dominant rule. What if in the around the mark, like that situation, does the starboard boat should give
we talked about that, right? So
space.
the starboard boat gets room if they're overlapped. The starboard boat gets room, just enough room to jibe. Not the starboard boat can't take this boat to forever. So hold on, let me This is actually what let me revert. All right, there we am. Let's revert. Thank you. So here we go. So here's our starboard boat. Our starboard boat, this boat here, because these boats are clear ahead. There's going to be no problems with these boats. Right. This boat here has to give the starboard boat enough room to jibe. The starboard boat can't take this boat way down here. That's against the rules. But this boat needs enough room, just enough room to jibe and to get around. So this boat is obliged to give this boat enough room to jibe. Does that make sense?
Okay, yeah.
Because they're overlapped and this boat is on starboard and that boat is on port. And the only difference that the zone creates in the rule is that the starboard boat can't force the port boat out to way off course, right? That's the modification for a 3-boat length circle in this particular instance for these 2 boats. Hopefully that answers your question. Marie, I see you've raised your hand. Would you like to ask a question?
Yes, I've had it a few times at races where the wind has died and the finishing line has been moved or modified in some way.
Yep.
And when I go back to register, it says I didn't sail the course, even though like the little horn went off as I crossed the finish line, or what I thought was the finish line.
Okay. It may have been, does this happen at Jericho or at a different spot?
This was Jericho, yeah.
At Jericho? Okay, so it may have been that you may have crossed the finish line on your way down, or you may not have started in time, or there's a bunch of other things. So at the starting sequence, you only have 4 minutes to start. You have a 4-minute window to start. If you don't start within that 4-minute window, you'll be scored DNS. This did not start. If you sailed across the finish line when you're going downwind instead of when you're before you finished, you'll be scored NSC, did not sail the course. So that's a possibility that might have happened. If the wind died and we shortened the course, you would have to have finished between the boat with the shortened flag and the mark. So let's do some more. Let's use our example here again, and let's pretend that this boat here is a Mark's boat with the S flag on it. And this is the downwind mark. So it's sitting here with the S flag, honking its horn. And let's say that the albatross was actually down here and the real finish line was down here. This was the first lap of a 2-lap race. We decide to finish right here. So the finish is now between the boat displaying the S flag and the mark. So without knowing specifically which race you're talking about, Marie, it's hard for me to tell you exactly what might have happened. Hopefully that gives you some insight as to what might have happened.
Yeah, thank you. That's exactly what the setup was. Actually, it was the Mark's boat had some flags. I'm still learning the flag symbols. So
yeah, so the S flag, something may have happened earlier on in the race. You may have sailed through the finish line on your way downwind, or you may have not rounded a mark properly, rounded it the wrong way. If you rounded a mark on your starboard side instead of on your port side, that would lead to a score of not having sailed the course, all that kind of stuff. It's really important to look at the course diagrams are there specifically. And if you take your track as you go around the marks and pull a string taut, if that string doesn't match the course diagram, then you haven't sailed the course. So if you sail the course, if you leave the mark to the wrong side, that would be one reason for you to be scored NSC, for example.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else have any other questions? No, in which case, I want to thank you all for attending. This is the first time we've done this. This is the first time we've done this on Zoom. Hopefully it went well. feels a little weird. I'm doing this blind. I can't see anyone, and I don't have a whiteboard to draw on. But hopefully, this made sense. I tried to anticipate questions and try and show things as visually as I could, because that's the way I like to learn. And what I'm really hoping for is to see you all on the race course, because this whole point of this is to get people racing and to build participation in our racing. I'm a strong believer that learning how to race your sailboat is going to make you a better sailor. And I encourage everyone to get out there, not to be intimidated, just to get out there and try it. Because I think it's one of the most fun things around. Thank you very much. I think this more or less concludes everything, and hope to see you out on the race course.